If you listen to enough business podcasts today, you'll start to hear the same thing over and over again. Cold calling is dead. AI is replacing salespeople. Automation is the future. And if you're a business owner trying to grow revenue, it can feel overwhelming. There are thousands of tools, thousands of strategies, and everyone claiming they've cracked the code. What if the truth is actually much simpler? What if the biggest advantage in today's business world isn't another piece of technology, but something much older? Trust. And that's what today's guest, Alex Grant, will talk about. Because while technology has changed almost everything about the way we work, one thing hasn't changed at all. People still buy from people. And in today's world where inboxes are flooded, feeds are full of ads, and skepticism is at an all-time high, earning that trust might actually be harder and more valuable than ever before. Today's guest, Alex Grant, he spent nearly 2 decades building and scaling sales teams in the payment and software space. And what he's seeing on the front lines might surprise you. His sales reps are still knocking on doors, still cold calling, still building relationships face to face. And some of them are making over $200K in their first 6 months doing it. In this conversation, we break down what's actually working in modern sales, how buyer behavior has changed, why trust is the real product being sold, and how to identify and hire the kind of people who can thrive in this environment. If you're a founder, business owner, or someone trying to grow revenue in an increasingly noisy world, this episode is going to challenge a lot of assumptions. So let's get into it. Here's my conversation with Alex Grant. Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Financial Freedom Podcast. Today, Alex Grant is going to teach the audience everything they need to know to grow and scale their business with North Sales Systems, payment processing, merchant services. We're going to hear about his incredible sales team and what he does. Alex, welcome.
Thank you, Chris. North is a payment processor. It's considered a SaaS model, a sales organization. Think of the items you see when you go to a restaurant, a server. They're taking your order. They're sending it to the kitchen. It's much more than that inventory management. You go to a hardware store and they're punching away at the screws and bolts that you buy, runs your credit card. It also fulfills inventory, tells you what you need to order more of as a business owner. Maybe it interfaces with an e-commerce platform. We work in the B2B space. You and I running around with our credit cards, we might not be pulling out your Visa at a manufacturer to buy something for your spouse. In today's world, people aren't cutting checks like they used to. If you want to buy 10,000 pounds of rebarb, I'm going to need your purchasing card, your Visa purchasing cards. Everything's digital these days. If it's some form of electronic payment, going through the wire digitally, ACH or credit card processing with an inventory management system, that's right up our alley. That's what we do.
We'll dive into the questions, the themes. One of them is modern field sales and sales success. What specific sales strategies are actually working today? How have they evolved from 10 years ago, and how are they changing with artificial intelligence?
Let's talk about where they've been first, what's working, and then we'll span into the future of sales. I've been in this space selling software in a payment processing company for 18 years. Things have changed, but there are some core components. I give this perspective, whether you're an individual trying to build a sales team or someone that wants to actually sell software. I had a conversation the other day. They were talking about cold calling is dead. That was said out loud. I'm going to tell you straight up, cold calling is not dead. Most people just don't want to do it. You don't like it. When I got into this space in 2008, when I started this new sales team back in May of 2025 for North, when I joined them, you could jump into this space. You can pull doors physically. That is, just in case you think it's an analogy, your hand on a strange business's door, you open it, walk in, interrupt their day. They have to have strategy and training. I have reps in their first 6 months. They've made $200,000 doing this. You're going to hear cold calling's dead and you jump right to AI. Hey, great. Let's take that $200,000 6-month period. Let's make it $400,000 with some AI. But at its core, you can wake up in the right sales model as a sales rep, sales leader, and hire reps that are making 6 figures year one. That's what I did when we first started in 2008, and it is effective. Now, the second part software sales. You can sell to an independently owned business that's doing $5 million in revenue. You walk into a manufacturer, they'd be a great target, because as much as I love technology, there is still a place for a human to make sense of the very fancy and confusing technology in front of another human, connecting on a human level. There's this balance for the sales reps, how much they know about our products versus how much is really needed to convey to a very intelligent business owner, a very intelligent entrepreneur to make the sale. I don't know what kind of phone you use. We sell technology potentially as complicated as your iPhone. But just like you and I go buy this thing for 5 apps, and I'm going to buy another one for $2,000 when the next one comes out. As much as we love technology to help with different ways that we can get business, there is still an extreme opportunity for human to human connection by meeting with business owners and stripping away the complexities. Business owners want to know that you know the solution to fix really hot problems. The other stuff might come as they figure it out. For our sales reps to sell a complicated product, we need basic CRM functionality, opportunity for them to find businesses. You got to consider what we sell. Who doesn't accept some form of electronic payment? Business owners that we're selling to doesn't just mean pa Main Street. It might mean that shipping yard that sells on a monthly basis $1 million worth of scrap metal to a manufacturer at Honda that converts it into engine parts. They're not paying with checks anymore. They're paying with purchasing cards. AI is our business. We're using it to organize the future of all the software integrations. When it comes to payment processing, you might be thinking about point of sale systems like a terminal that you see at a candy shop. But if you really want to talk about where the future of payments is, it's embedded software. It's payments embedded in a software to make the entire purchase frictionless. We have a huge database at North of all the different software companies that we interface, tens of thousands of them. Some of the hardest part of the sale is often, how do we plug in to the software we just sold to a business owner? We're using a lot of our technology to stay organized.
You were alluding to payments. What I found interesting was the idea of stable coins. If North has examined looking into stable coins, is supposed to be cheaper and faster than traditional credit card processors.
That is something that I don't know a lot about in the game that we're playing. We do tokenization. The mainstream payment is Visa, MasterCard, Discover, American Express. There's a handful of fleet cards. There's 2 companies called WEX and Voyager that you would use if you owned a plumbing business and had 15 trucks. We're working with those on the mainstream to build the integrations. If we build that integration, there has to be enough adoption. It's like chicken or the egg. Adoption first. It is something that comes up at every sales meeting. What do we do with this? It's so big. Where do we start? I haven't even seen our competitors do it. If you put all of our minds together, we're hitting our heads. How do we break through? We have to have standardization. We're processing for the main card types. If you wanted to create the 5th credit card, Visa, MasterCard, Discover, American Express, the 5th credit card, what comes first? Us getting customers that have it in their wallet? Is it that we get people to accept it at all the pay at the pumps and terminals? The last one to break through was the Novus card, which evolved into Discover. It was initially the Sears credit card. That was their distribution. It's hard to break through. There will be a day where this is an easily answered question, but it's been tough to figure out.
Quick pause here. If this episode is making you rethink how your income is structured, that's intentional. Information doesn't create freedom, structure does. At the end of this episode, I'm going to show you how to diagnose whether you're building leverage or just scaling complexity. Let's get back into it. How have buyer behaviors changed in recent years? What must modern sales teams do differently to win deals?
When you're selling software, a business owner, they buy with more skepticism. The biggest thing I share with the team, we sell trust. There's so many ways to establish it. But in a world that's been programmed to be distracted, it's never been harder to sell you a complicated solution. Business owners are distracted. This manufacturer that does $5 million a year in revenue, he's getting texts from his family. He had 3 employees that called in sick. With technology comes more. Did you reset the router problems? There's never been more problems. What has changed? Technology is evolving. So is skepticism. But that's where the human comes to reduce skepticism. If they want someone to be accountable for the biggest thing that reps, even though they pull a lot of doors and they make great money pulling doors, they're leveraging our current portfolio of happy clients that are already with us. They're leveraging the fact that they work a lot of referrals. There's never been more of an emphasis on human-to-human networking. The way that we're getting our business is we're pulling doors and we're making money for that. But you want to get some of these bigger deals up market, you got to come with someone else's stamp of approval. So you've got to make sure that there is some familiarity, not just, it's one thing to have the product memorized and you can demo it better than everyone. If they're not listening to you because they're like, I don't even know if I can trust this guy, if I want to buy this thing. That's what we're working with these days. In today's digital world, you're going to sell someone a product that's going to run $25 million of business-to-business credit cards. They want to make sure more than you just have a business card from North or any of my competitors. They want to make sure you are who you say you are. In 2008, I called on an account, a toy store of pool parts. It was the first time I realized that what I was really selling was trust. Sat down with this woman. I was with one of my sales reps. We're in this great appointment. And I'm like, oh, we got this one. My rep's going to get paid. I'm so excited. And right at the point where she should sign on the line, she goes, okay, everything looks great. Why don't you come back tomorrow at 9 a.m.? And it was 6:30 at night. We come back tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. I don't even have to try. She's like, okay, where do I sign? Normally you have to represent. They got 3 or 4 questions. Going back to trust, she signs with us real quick. And she said, hey, would you like to know why I told you to come back today? I just exploded. I'm like, yes. I'd love to. What is going on right now? This is typically where you blow me off. I can't get a hold of you. I mess something up. You don't like my face. I don't know. And she said, you guys came in off the streets. I don't know you. I do like you, but I don't know. This is back in 2008. I didn't have enough time to Google and check out that you are who you say you are. And I really appreciate her feedback. That's right when LinkedIn was picking up. Later that day, myself and the rep, we were sitting at a coffee shop and I said, let's pull up our LinkedIn. We looked up our LinkedIn. She had looked at both of our profiles. I'm like, wow, she was Googling us. That was back in 2008. Technology brings skepticism. You want to get some very important deals where people are doing $25 million to your machine. You're going to need references or a referral. Technology comes with cost. Skepticism is high. How much of my Instagram feed is real? So there has to be human connection. I know that if I ran a manufacturer that had 25 million of revenue going through my payment processing, I would want to double check that you are who you say you are. Human to human connection is important.
And along those lines, the audience, a lot of our business owners and hires, identifying talent. When you meet new people, what are key traits or behaviors that immediately signal that they could be a top performer?
When you're in the interview process, you got to make sure these people have something that they are driven to accomplish. New in the job, when I joined the industry in 2008, I couldn't afford for it to not work out. I went all in and I figured, I don't know what I'm doing. I have expenses, a wife, just bought a house. If this doesn't work, I don't know. I didn't have a plan B. I grinded it out in the way I could get enough at bats. When you're new, you need at bats. I want someone who has a why. I want someone that tells stories to me in the interview process about hard things they've done. They don't even have to be business. One of my favorite questions in an interview, I normally start it off towards the beginning, is tell me a success story from your life from when you were 17 years old or younger. Just something you're proud of. I love to learn people's makeup. Sometimes they tell you something in high school sports. Sometimes they tell you how they ran 3 paper routes to pay for things when they were a kid. I want to hear stories where I go, oh, that's something hard. I've never done that. That's tough. I love to hear stories of resiliency. I love to hear stories about, I figured this one thing out. I love when people tell them and they're so proud. They're so proud because they wouldn't be proud if they were easy. They wouldn't be jumping into things before you know everything. If we can identify throughout the interview process that someone would or could say, I would sell your product, I just don't know enough about it yet. That's a flag. There is the responsibility of the business to teach them an appropriate amount. But once as a business, you've taught the appropriate amount to sell any of our software, you need to know 3 or 4% of it to set appointments that your manager will support you on. The red flag is, hey, do you need to know everything about a product before you actually engage in conversation with people? I want to stress, so many people ask the same questions when they recruit. If you join, how many doors will you pull? People know how to answer those questions. They become professional interviewees. I actually like to make sure that you experience that our culture is different here and what we care about is different based on the questions we ask, not just because we say, hey, our culture's great. We got ping pong tables and hammocks in the break room. We try to behave different throughout the whole process, and it attract and push the wrong candidate away. I love recruiting. It's one of my most favorite topics. We can break down some traits. What I can tell you after recruiting successfully for 18 years is that any advice you hear from anyone that speaks in absolutes, they know what the secret is. You either need to hire them to run your recruiting department, or you need to be skeptical and run. Recruiting is guessing. My biggest warning, I can think back to my past self when I was trying to figure a lot of this out. I used to overthink it. I would be like, I met with Chris. He seems good, but I don't know. Then I'd put you through more of a ringer. I put you through, why don't you talk to one of my managers? I started making the recruiting process borderline inappropriate. You know, those recruiting, you've heard people like, I interviewed with this company for 6 months and I didn't get the job. I'm not going to say that I ever did that to people, but I will tell you that all these folks that you hear about have these because it's such a big, important job. They have this very long recruiting process. Recruiting is guessing. I can statistically prove to you with years of data that we've gone all the way from having you take those personality assessments to finding the exact things. Oh, you worked at this company, you're going to make it here. I have no data that proves where you worked before means success. I have data that proves even if you're from my exact industry, you do not have more success in the payment SaaS space than if you worked at Cintas selling uniforms or you worked at a waste management company.
What a great way to end the conversation. How can people learn more from you?
I'd love for people to connect with me. Go to LinkedIn, type Alex Grant North. You can always send me an email, agrant@north.com, or you could visit North's website, north.com. We do have a section there on careers. If you can't figure out which one you're looking for, shoot me an email, send me a message through LinkedIn, and we'll get you in the right place.
I enjoyed it. Your enthusiasm and passion comes through. Keep up the great work.
You have no idea what I said, but you're ready to do push-ups, and that's all that matters. Thank you so much, Chris.
Thank you. Let's zoom out. If you're a physician, founder, or high-income professional, and you feel like you're working harder every year, but not structurally freer, you're not alone. The mistake isn't effort, it's architecture. This show exists to help you convert expertise into scalable leverage, faster and with fewer expensive missteps. Here's the diagnostic I mentioned before. If your income requires your constant presence, if your capital isn't compounding outside your profession, if your highest value talent is doing low value tasks, you don't have a growth problem, you have a leverage design problem. And if you want to fix it with clarity instead of guesswork, I offer a limited number of one-on-one leverage strategy sessions each month. We audit your income model, capital deployment, authority positioning, and structural bottlenecks, and design your highest return move. If you're serious about compressing years into months, the link to apply is below.